Going to be out here tonight protesting and grieving for the life of our brother who was taken away too soon from us. And the vigil is being organized by the Minneapolis NAACP, the Racial Justice Network, the African Career Education and Resources Inc., the BLM Twin Cities, Families Supporting Families, BLM Minnesota, the CUAPB, the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar Clark, and CARE Minnesota, and Minnesota Justice Coalition, and all other community leaders. We're going to be out here protesting peacefully, holding space, grieving for our son and brother who was taken away too soon from us, and demanding justice. We will not rest until justice is served. We'll open it up to questions from the media. Thank you.
I'm just curious about your thoughts on the mayor, because he did say today that he was in favor of the firing, but I assume he had something to do with the response last night.
I can answer that. So the mayor, yesterday I have been talking to the mayor. Unfortunately, the city of Brooklyn Center, the mayor does not have authority to deal with police incident that was happening last night. The mayor did reach out to the city manager. That's why we're asking for the city manager to be fired. The city manager was inside this building last night making decisions about what was happening outside. So the mayor has been cooperating with the community. He's been in contact with all of us. Unfortunately, the authority that the charter of the city has does not give him the power for him to fire even the police chief, to intervene. He was on the call with us last night talking to us and asking the city manager to de-escalate the situation. But unfortunately, the city manager refused. The police chief refused. And I want to add one more last thing. The video evidence of what we saw right now is murder. And we are demanding an immediate charges. On Tuesday morning, they should be charging this officer with murder. With murder. Broad daylight murder. It's not an accident. It is a murder of a young man in this city.
That's right. Do you have any concerns about peaceful protesters coming out and peacefully protesting about some violence may spark, depending on how many people come out to the protest?
We do, and part of our concern is not with the protesters, but actually with the police force. Yes. Because what actually happened yesterday was the violence started with the police. So our concern is to keep our community safe and away from the police, because we know they're ready, and like the police chief said, he has no regret about his actions yesterday, and that they're willing to do the same thing tonight. Our people are coming here to peacefully mourn the death of our son, our brother, our community member, but we are not sure if the police officers are willing to be peaceful tonight.
That's right. And I understand that, and not only that, as we can see, they have, like, the National Guard, they have so many police officers out here. I see they finna barricade this place, and also they may finna put up plywood as well. What is your main concerns, and what do you want to see happen during this protest tonight?
What we want to see happen is to make sure that the word is here to actually see us peacefully gathering, and to see the police officers attacking us. We actually encourage you all to be here tonight to see, as people are going to gather peacefully. Our leaders, we're going to be our leaders of this community. We're going to be there to ensure that people are actually expressing their grief peacefully. So we are hoping that you all can actually help tell our stories tonight, because we're going to be here peacefully tonight. But like I said earlier, we're not sure if the police are willing to be here peacefully. They already have plans to actually attack us. The police chief actually made that clear today.
Yes.
So I just want to put it in context. We're in the midst of a pandemic still that disproportionately impacted our community. If you look at the data in the state of Minnesota, actually the cities of Brooklyn Center is one of the areas that was most impacted by the pandemic in terms of COVID infections, loss of jobs, etc. Right? And so I want us to put that into context, and then we have to deal with the murder of another one of our community members, right? We are exhausted as a community. So I think what I want to emphasize is we are asking for our lives to be valued. I mean, that is what I want people to lead with, is how are the black and brown people in Brooklyn Center doing, right? How are we valuing how are they valuing our lives? How can people support us, and especially our young people who have had to deal with a lot of changes, and adjustments. the Brooklyn Center School today is virtual today, right? Because it's pretty close, to this place. So that is the perspective that I would like for people to lead with. We're not here to destroy property, but we would like for black and brown lives to be valued of a freaking order.
Nakeema, can I just ask your question? I'm so sorry. Today, Derek Chauvin's defense attorney called for the jury to be sequestered. The judge turned that down. What is your reaction?
I think it's absolutely absurd that the defense attorney in the Derek Chauvin case would try to capitalize off of a moment of grief that is happening in the community, just as he has tried to do throughout the trial by demonizing George Floyd, as well as the bystanders who were trying to intervene and stop the police from killing George Floyd. So I'm not surprised by the tactics, but I am disgusted. And I'm glad that Judge Cahill saw through those despicable tactics.
Thank you.
Are you, Dr. King, I want to ask one more question real quick. Are you concerned about the statement that the police chief said that's right here in Brooklyn Center? Are you concerned that he did give the green lighting on gaslighting for the police to use military tactics to hurt peaceful protesters?
It's very clear from the statements by the police chief that he is unconcerned about the harm that the Brooklyn Center police caused peaceful demonstrators last night. The fact that he acknowledged that he turned off the lights so that officers could see better, not recognizing the fact that that meant that all of us were being targeted as a result of the weapons that they were using against us, chemical weapons, rubber bullets. People were injured last night. He showed absolutely no concern. And most of the people who were out here were young people around the same age as Dante Wright, which makes it even more unconscionable that they took those actions. It felt like we were in a war zone when we're supposed to be in the midst of a residential community.
And even the language that he used today actually re-emphasized how he see us. He called the protesters rioters, and that is completely unacceptable because people were out here tonight to protest. And we're not even going to concern ourselves about like the so-called violence that he's concerning himself about. What actually happened yesterday was a murder, and that's what we want to be out there. A murder happened. Our young brothers, our young children, they're scared. They're angry, and they have the right to be out here, and they are protesters, not rioters.
That's right.
And the police chief is actually part of the problem with that language.
Absolutely.
There was children out there. There was children that were out there last night.
Tell them who you are and give me your name, please.
My name is Angela Myers. I'm the president of the Minneapolis NAACP. I was there last night along with a number of other community members. We were here, we were at the site and the scene on 63rd and Lee, and we saw who was out there last night. We saw that when the police officers left 63rd and Lee, the scene there instantly became calm. We saw that when peaceful protesters were outside of this building last night, it was the riot gear and it was the police force that came out that escalated tensions. And so we saw for a fact that the lights, just these lights out here, were turned off and it was dark. You couldn't see how many people there were. You couldn't see how many police officers they were. And the police chief today said, no, there weren't youth out there. How would he know? He couldn't see. He turned off the light.
That's right.
He said that he turned off the light in order to not backlight the police officers. And so one of the things that we're calling for, we asked him today, we said, would you do that again tonight? Do you feel any remorse for your actions? And he said unequivocally, he would do the exact same thing he did last night, tonight.
Listen!
And so with that, we have to say, what type of police chief do we have?
That's right.
Why does he have this job? How is he trying to protect our First Amendment rights, as Chantel said? He's not trying to protect our First Amendment rights. He's not trying to protect the people of this community. He said he's committed to protecting this building.
That's right.
When asked, are you committed to protecting the people of this community? He said, if they're peaceful protesters. Not everybody.
Right.
Not every single person out here. And particularly when the lights are off, it's hard to tell who's peaceful and who's not.
Exactly.
Because there were peaceful protesters who were hurt last night, who were rushed to the hospital.
Yes.
There were peaceful protesters that stood in the street, across the street, and they were tear gassed.
That's right.
Okay? We who were there, it didn't matter whether you're across the street, whether you're next to the field of the school right there, you could smell the tear gas for blocks.
Yes.
I was crying because of the tear gas in my own eyes. That we couldn't even figure out where our car was while we were trying to get home, trying to get out of the scene, trying to disperse peacefully. Couldn't see anything because of the tear gas. So I just want to say that the peaceful protesting line, they like to put out, right? But they were the ones that escalated things.
Yeah.
And they were the ones, they didn't even know who was peaceful or not because they turned off the light.
That's
And
right.
they didn't care.
And
They
all of
didn't
that
care.
happened too because none of our police officers live here. They're not invested in this community. None of them live here. None of our staff, our city staff, do not live in the city of Brooklyn Center. Our police officers do not live in the city of Brooklyn Center. So how do we expect them to care about the people of the city of Brooklyn Center?
Hello, my name is Marquise Armstrong. I'm a part of the Racial Justice Network. I'm a mental health practitioner and owner of a mental health practice. One of the things that we noticed, and Chantel Allen, who's a St. Paul school board member, brought it up. When the chief was arguing with the women saying there were children out there, he said no, they weren't. She brought it to our attention that that's because the chief and many other police officers don't see us as human.
Facts.
There were children. He can't even identify a child, and he did not care. He displayed aggression even when talking to us back at City Hall. He is an aggressive chief, therefore his leadership is aggressive. And all that are under his leadership follow that aggressive leadership. So he has to go. The city manager who supported him has to go. This type of behavior should not be allowed to be in leadership at all. If the city, if the police department truly wants reconciliation to restore relationship back with community, that type of behavior will be in the way of it. We thank you all for attending. Okay, there's other people who will speak.
Hello, my name is Jonathan McClellan, president of the Minnesota Justice Coalition. We're part of a collective of organizations who work with the families to advance legislation at the Capitol here in St. Paul and in Washington, D.C. On March 29th, our collective of organizations sent a letter to the FBI and to the Minnesota congressional delegation asking for the FBI to restart their patterns and practices investigations of the police departments around the state of Minnesota. And we're still waiting for a response for that. On this past Friday, the Minnesota Senate voted down a measure that would make it so police officers would lose their job and not be able to be hired as police officers if they were affiliated with white supremacy organizations. And this Wednesday, we're hearing two bills, qualified immunity and releasing body camera footage after 48 hours. And we hope that you guys cover that footage as well. Thank you.
My name is Chantel Allen. I'm with Black Lives Matter Twin Cities. I just want to stand in solidarity with everybody in demanding that the police officer is fired, that the chief of police and the city attorney is also, city manager is also terminated. When we make these kind of decisions, and we're allowing folks to make those type of brutal, fatal mistakes, that's sending a message to everybody across the state. We've got to put our foot down and draw a line on what is policing. And what's frustrating to me is we have to go city to city to city to make this point. This should be obvious. When this happened with George Floyd, when this happened with Philando Castile, when this happened with Jamal Clark, when it happened with Marcus Golden, with Cordell Henry, we can go on and on. The brother had a long list, and I can add more and more. There's 430-something individuals that have been murdered in the state of Minnesota in the 2000s. That's a lot of black bodies. And for us to not have the space to be frustrated with that and step out in our First Amendment right and have that is an infringement of our constitutional rights. When we step up to have our voices and say something is wrong, we need the state to see it, we need the city to see it, we need the county to see that there's something wrong. That's why they wrote that in the Constitution. So when we showed up here to say there is something wrong with this police department and we are attacked in that manner, that is an infringement of our constitutional rights. I demand that we start to see some real change. And the only way that I've ever been able to see any kind of small changes is when those individuals are removed. So I am demanding that the chief of police, the city manager, and the police officer are immediately terminated. And someone who is capable of managing the city, of overseeing a police department, making sure that they have the proper training so that they're not making these kind of negligent accidents. The police officer herself needs to also be terminated. I'm demanding that they are terminated immediately. That's right. So I am Chantel Allen. I'm with Black Lives Matter Twin Cities. Let me keep it straight. Black Lives Matter Twin Cities. And I'm standing in solidarity with the community today in the peaceful protest that will show up today at 7 o'clock in peace, to exercise our constitutional rights. And when you're here and you're seeing that it's being infringed on, point it out to the world. Let the world see what we're dealing with here in the state of Minnesota, because this is not just at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all.
CHAUNTYLLALLEN.
Yeah. Thanks. Matt, you're a visitor here. Don't walk past nobody's footage. You walking past everybody's footage, though. You could have went this way, nothing up.
So what I said to
Were they rolling?
Do you want to disconnect something?
I can figure out if there's a way to get it. Pull her back to my left. I got out as soon as I could, alright? Yeah, he's in there. Huh? That's it. Dilemma. Got to blend in a little bit.
It's murder. It's murder, she wrote. We seen the video. They killed this kid, and this is our taxpayer dollars. That's murder.